name is Sonia Lovell, and I am obsessed with helping women navigate the magical, messy, and let's be honest, more hysterical moments of this thing called menopause. I'm a personal trainer and breast cancer survivor turned menopause coach. I help women understand what's going on, why, and what they can do to navigate the menopausal transition. Gloss over the real talk? No way! Exhaustion, brain fog, loss of libido, loss of confidence, and anxiety are just some of the topics that we'll chat about. Consider this a juicy happy hour with your new bestie and her friends. Settle in and get ready to learn and laugh. This is the Dear Menopause podcast. Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of Dear Menopause. This week, I was delighted to sit down with the very lovely Shelly Horton. Now, Shelly is the personification of confidence. She is a journalist, TV presenter, MC, and she runs her own company, ShellShocked Media, where she teaches media and presentation training. She runs the confidence course where she helps people find their inner Beyonce. Now, for the past 6 years, Shelly has appeared weekly on Channel 9, delivering opinion segments. She's the lifestyle presenter for 9 Honey, the host of 9 Honey's Talking Honey, He Said, She Said, and Married at First Sight spin-off show, Talking Married. Shelly is also an ambassador for the National Breast Cancer Foundation, Too Good, and Pink Hope. Her career highlights include 11 years reporting for the ABC, 8 years as a presenter on Channel 7, 6 years as a journalist at Fairfax, and 5 years as the South Pacific correspondent for Entertainment Tonight, USA. Now, Shelly has very graciously opened up an incredible conversation for women in her own personal social medias, where she talks very, very openly about her experience with perimenopause. In this episode, Shelly and I, we get real, we have a very juicy conversation, and I hope that you find something to take away that is helpful for you or for somebody that you know. Hey, Shelly, thank you so much for joining me on the show today.
I am so excited to be here. I love talking perimenopause and menopause because not enough people do it.
I could not agree with you more. So that's why I'm really excited. We are going to have one juicy conversation. We've already set the ground rules. Nothing is off the table.
No rules.
Strap in, ladies. We're going to hit the ground running here. So, Shelly, let's start off. Share a little bit for us about your personal perimenopausal story.
Well, basically, it hit me like a bus, and I wasn't expecting it at all. I didn't even know what the word perimenopause meant. And that, I think, is the thing that I want to change the most, is if you're prepared for it and you're looking for symptoms, it won't hit you like a bus like it did for me. So my problem was it started when I was 46, but the year was 2020 and we're in the middle of COVID. So every single symptom that popped up, I put down to stress because of COVID. So first things first, after, and again, nothing's off limits here. So I have had shocking, like Armageddon periods from age 12. And so I was put on the pill for years, which we all know is the worst thing you can do for terrible periods. And it turns out I have polycystic ovary syndrome. So none of that was really going to help. But then I discovered this little plastic hook called the Marina, and it changed my life, and I love it, and I can't, praise it enough. So I basically now I'm on my 3rd Marina, and you keep a Marina inside. It's an IUD for 5 years. So I'm up to nearly 13 years of not even having a period. Which is a dream, particularly when I was the girl who would flood through a tampon and pad and it'd be all over the bed. Like it was just horrendous. So then in 2020, my period came back. And
even though you had the Marina in?
I've got the Marina. Like there should be.
Wow.
What? It overrode the Marina. But of course, I just went, geez, I'm really stressed. Like it must be really bad for me to be bleeding again. And it just came as a very normal, fairly heavy 7-day period. And then it went away again. And I'm like, oh my God, like, how's that? My body is telling me I'm struggling because of keeping the business afloat. Every single thing could be handed to COVID stress.
Yeah.
Then I've never really had any mental health issues. I'm very lucky. I certainly have felt depressed and sad, but that's been for very valid reasons, like a divorce, So I'm
sure,
like,
that'll do it to you.
Kind of makes sense. But I've never really had problems with my mental health. And then I got depressed, and I didn't again. Just thought it was the stress of COVID. So I was crying nearly every day, not for long, not dramatically, but just there would be a moment during the day that I'd feel so overwhelmed that I'd have a couple of big fat tears would fly down my face. And then that got a bit worse. And I was having a couple of times where I didn't want to get out of bed. And that has never happened to me before. And then I was just not finding joy in anything. So one of my joys is my work at Channel 9. Like, who wouldn't want to be on TV debating, Ben Fordham about any and everything, every topic, I would get almost like a bit of a high after that normally. And I would be driving home from Channel 9 and the thoughts in my head were, well, you just embarrassed yourself on national TV. No one's going to want you on TV. And again, you're hopeless. Like, just this horrific negative self-talk.
Yeah, so your inner mean girl, she really came out.
She was a fucking bitch.
Yeah.
It was shocking.
And she can be at the best of times. So if you've noticed that that's elevated,
I've always had, the negative self-talk with regards to body image, but not with my work ethic. Like that's the one thing I've always been really proud of is I work really hard but for this, I was just like, I didn't want to work. I didn't want to do anything. Anyway, it was my husband who just went, hey, this is not you. I think we need to speak to someone about it. And then by then I got my second period. And again, it was like the same thing where it was, I only went for a week. And so I went to my regular GP and got a little bit of information, and she mentioned perimenopause. And then she said a couple of things like, oh, we've got a gel for you to put on. And I thought it was like, you had to put it up your fanny. And I'm like, oh, I'm probably not going to do that. And I just didn't really listen, or I don't know, I just didn't take it on board. I had blood tests. But then this is when I started to really pay attention. In November, so September, October, November, I started bleeding and I didn't stop bleeding for 60 days.
Whoa, Shelly.
Yeah. And it was heavy enough that I would need a tampon. So it wasn't just like...
So it wasn't spotting, it wasn't...
So I went back to my GP, and by this stage I'm in floods of tears. I'm feeling run down. Like, it was just, everything was awful.
And this was all, sorry, just refresh me. This is all over about a 3-month period?
About 3 months, yeah. And then obviously doctors have to be very careful. So she's like, you will need to go and get an internal ultrasound. We need to check that it's not ovarian cancer, cervical cancer. We need to check if the marina has been dislodged somehow, all of that stuff. So I went in there, had that done. Also had a pap test, which I have always had pretty regular ones, but I did have HPV when I was like 25 or something. 80% of the population has HPV. So I'm not going to have any shame associated with that. But yeah, so I've been pretty good. Everything came back normal with my looking at my ovaries, and the marina was in the right spot and everything. But my pap test came back saying quite a few abnormal cells. So then I was convinced I had cervical cancer, like convinced.
Yeah.
And I had to go and see a gynecologist to have a colposcopy where they take the cone biopsy. All of this is still happening and I'm still feeling depressed, and I haven't had anyone even say maybe we need to look at this a bit further, and went and saw the gynecologist. The gynecologist was lovely, but she was like, your cervix is, because I haven't had children, I'm child-free by choice. She said it was like slammed shut like a rusted gate.
Oh, I'm so sorry. That's the most hilarious.
She could not get in there, right? So she did the colposcopy in the uterus, but she said she couldn't actually get up into the cervix because it was so tight. She's like, you're quite perimenopausal. And again, I'm like, what the hell? And she said, look, I will get up as far as I can. This is going to hurt, breathe. And she also had a massive TV screen where like she was watching it. And I'm like, I'm pretty up for all that medical stuff. But at the moment, I just didn't want to see my insides.
Nah.
And she got it, and yeah, it hurt a fair bit. But she's like, look, if I'm not happy with the amount of cells that I've got, then you're going to have a general anesthetic for me to actually crack that thing open and get up there.
Get out the jaws of life and wedge her open.
Right? It's honestly like, a robber cracking a safe.
Yeah.
Anyway, so luckily that all came back, and she said, look, there weren't any abnormal cells. The only thing is I want you to have yearly pap tests now.
Okay.
But you need to sort out your some HRT or something. By this stage.
So she was the first person to mention any type of.
My original GP had mentioned it, but I kind of was like, oh, no, I don't think I need that.
Yeah.
Because I just had no idea. And then, of course, Dr. Ginny Mansberg is one of my best friends, right? She wrote the book, The M Word, about menopause. So when I saw her socially, because I don't want her to be my GP, because I'm like, I don't want you looking up my vajayjay, okay? Like, if we're going to drink wine together, I don't want to.
There's a line.
There's a line.
There's a line.
And she always says, you are so missing out, because I am very good at pap tests. She's like, I do them all day, every day. And I think I'm one of the best in Australia. And I'm like, I don't care. I don't want
you ain't going near mine.
So anyway, she saw what the GP had suggested, and she did that cat bum face.
Ooh,
and I'm like,
that's not a good thing.
I'm like, Ginny, you cannot do that face. And I'm like, no. I said, here's the thing. You have to take me on as a patient. And I said, only for this. Yep. I'll get everything else done elsewhere, but just for this. So she got me onto a great HRT. So I'm on estrogen and progesterone.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And straight away, like the hot flushes and things got a bit better.
Mm-hmm.
The insomnia got better because I only had a bit of that, but I still had this depression.
Yeah.
And so Ginny is very conservative when it comes to antidepressants. So she put me on a very light one, but also made sure that I made an appointment to see a counsellor.
Okay, amazing.
So I went and saw the counsellor, and I was a crying mess. I didn't even recognize myself. And she was just like, this is very common with women of your age, blah, blah, blah. And I just felt like, why hasn't anyone told me this?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Why?
Why did I not know?
Well, like almost felt like I'd been left out of the gang. Like I felt like, mothers share information. So why isn't this happening? And so I don't know if people listening understand with antidepressants, but if once you go on one, you then have to wean off it before you can try another one. So this, meanwhile, had been another couple of months. So I had been having quite severe depressive symptoms for 6 months now. And I wasn't coping. I was crying all the time. It was getting to the point where I had a couple of days where I wouldn't shower. Like it was all of those very, very typical symptoms that people describe when they talk about depression. And yet in my head, I was still saying it's just because of lockdowns and COVID.
Yeah.
Then Ginny got me onto a different antidepressant, Lexapro, and I want to marry it.
Your new best friend.
I could not believe the difference.
So talk me through that. What were the differences for you?
I became me again. The crying stopped almost day one. The crying stopped. I got my full work ethic and desire to work back within a week. I felt like going outside again. I felt like seeing my friends. Like, even though there was lockdown and friends were wanting to do Zoom and you could still go for walks, and I didn't even want to do that because I was just feeling so blah.
Yeah.
I was just like, I'm back, baby. And I honestly cannot believe I felt so much shame and so much stigma about going on to antidepressants. If I had known that it would fix me like that.
And that's one of the things that I want to really talk to you about, is that shame that is, I know you've talked about it in different articles that you've written and interviews that you've done, but I think there's a couple of things that came up for me in what you just said there. Number one was when you said that after taking the Lexapro, you were back to being you. Yeah. And one of the most common statements that I hear from women when I talk about perimenopause, or, and they don't understand what perimenopause is. They haven't heard about it before. But the one thing that they say is, I don't feel like me anymore.
Yes.
So that is a huge thing, I think, for any woman that out there that has no idea what the fuck is actually going on, but just knows that she doesn't feel like she's not herself.
Yes.
Go and see a doctor. Go and have a conversation.
Because that is so subjective. Like, it's just like, it is where you can go, oh, I've had a lot of stress at work, or I've had this, or for some people it'd be like the kids are pain in the ass, teenagers.
We're women, we juggle, we multitask.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
So I think it is about being very in tune with yourself. And I would actually suggest, and I didn't do this and I wish I had, but I suggest that women keep a little bit of a diary or something to realize, hang on, this is actually gone on for more than 2 weeks. This has gone on for a month, or that sort of thing. So I think it's very easy to forget what it's been like.
And that's something that I learned, and it's my biggest tip to women when they ask me, how can they help themselves? What's their lowest barrier to entry thing that they can do to start helping themselves? And I learned this when I was going through my cancer treatment and I was having regular meetings with my oncologist. It was write everything down as you experience it. So keep a journal, write it into a Google Doc, whatever is your way of keeping notes. And
just notes on your phone.
That's notes on your phone. Great idea. And it's things like, did I bleed and when did I bleed? When did it start? When did it stop? How was my mood today? How did I sleep last night? Did I have hot sweats? Did I snap at the family? Did I rip the kids' heads off for no good reason? All of those things, just as much of a record that you can keep, and then take that to your doctor, the quicker you're going to be able to unravel what's going on.
You're basically providing evidence for them to 100%. Crack the case, and I feel that once you write it down, it becomes real, rather than just something in your head. So I certainly wrote down when my periods, because it was so shocking for me. So that was something that I did. And when we talk about the shame and stigma as well, I remember the first lot of antidepressants that Ginny prescribed to me, and I was crying. My husband came with me to the doctor's appointment, bless him, because he was just like, hey, this is not you, this is the chemicals in your brain, so let's just sort it out. And just having that support was amazing. But the other thing about writing things down is I had questions, but because I was getting upset so often, I wouldn't remember the questions. So I would suggest, if women are wanting to speak to their GP, write down the questions when you're at home and you're calm, because often if you're talking about how often you're crying or how you're feeling, you will get emotional, and then all of the questions fly out of your brain.
That's right.
But I remember the first time with the antidepressants, and I am a journalist and I write about this stuff all of the time, not perimenopause, but mental health and Are You Okay Day and all of that sort of thing. And I have never judged anyone else for taking antidepressants. But I have a very burnt in my memory, distinct memory of driving home from Dr. Ginny's with the actual prescription in the passenger seat and crying and just going, what have I done to myself?
Yeah.
What have I done that my body's reacting like this? And so there was a lot of blame and a lot of shame.
Mm-hmm.
I was so embarrassed at the pharmacy. I didn't want the pharmacist to know that I was having antidepressants. And oh my God, these people deal with it every single day.
Mm-hmm.
And I just can't believe I consider myself fairly informed. I am an open book. I will talk about, fanny farts or whatever, it is. I'm so open, and that something like this shut me down.
Yeah.
Shockingly. So that's why now that I am feeling great, I'm also going, oh my God, I need to talk about this more because someone might hear me and go, oh, that's me.
Yeah.
And I've got to help other women because, yeah, it was bad. I've also got to tell you this story, which my mum won't like, but
they're the best stories.
So mum's generation was very much, soldier on, that sort of thing. We don't talk about mental health in my family. That's just, it's just, it's just a different generation. That's the best way to describe it. No fault of theirs, no fault of mine. However, I wrote a story for Nine Honey about the shame around going on to antidepressants and what perimenopause had made me feel. And I wrote this article and I was really proud of it. And I said in the article, I'm feeling so much shame I haven't even told my family.
Mm-hmm.
And then my editor rang me and she's like, you haven't told your family? I'm like, no. And she's like, we're about to publish this. She's like, I'm not going to publish this until you've told your family. Okay. So you let me know when you let me know when you've done that. And even that I was like, oh yeah, that's right. Everything I do is public. Oops. So I wrote, Mum and Dad were visiting my aunt and uncle in Tasmania, and I didn't want to interrupt their holiday, but I also was still a bit teary about everything, and I didn't want to have that conversation. So I wrote this really long emotional text message just saying, hey, Mum, look, perimenopause is really kicking my ass and I'm not having a great time, but I'm seeing a counselor and Dr. Ginny's got me on HRT and Darren's being really supportive. And anyway, we've all decided I need to go on antidepressants. So I just wanted to let you know, but I'm everyone's taking care of me. So it's okay.
Yeah.
And she replied, chin up. Chin up.
Chin up, love.
Oh my God. I was just like, wow, that is the difference.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Chin up. And she, at no point would she have thought that that was being mean or rude or anything like that. It's just like, well, that's just what you do.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's what I think we're fighting against. Is one generation's difference.
Yeah. Exactly.
From chin up to let's talk about dry vaginas.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's quite confronting as well for our mothers and our grandmothers before us that, we're so used to just pulling up the rug and sweeping it all under and then popping the rug back down in the hope that nobody will ever pull that rug back up again. And here we are ripping that fucking rug off the floor, showing everyone our shit.
Mate, we're setting fire to that rug.
But what I love is that other women are looking under our rugs and going, oh, you've got that too?
Yeah.
Oh my God, I thought it was just me. And that's where the power in having these conversations really lies.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because you think you're going through it alone.
Mm.
And particularly when your hormones are, I like to describe it as my ovaries are backfiring like a car at the moment. So it's like, nothing, lots,
Yeah, I always try and describe it to women like they're literally on a roller coaster ride, and one day they're up and one day they're down. And that's why I think there's a belief, because it hasn't been talked about, that one day you wake up and your hormones have literally just dropped off the cliff and that's it, they're gone.
Yeah.
But it's not. It is this roller coaster of up and down and low and high.
Roller coaster is too positive.
Too nice.
I say it's it's a ghost train, or it's a, it's there's screaming and crying and then crazy laughter. Like it's a bit
all. We need to find a name for it that's not quite as gentle as roller coaster.
Yeah, I actually saw a meme once which I loved, and it was an old-fashioned roller coaster, and the roller coaster was actually on fire, and it said, "Visual image of my emotional roller coaster I'm on right now." So that's kind of what it's like.
Yes. So one of the questions that I had for you was, out of everything that you've been through, and even though you've been so open with everything, what have been your biggest learnings that you want to share with women?
I think the biggest thing is women learn by speaking to each other. So we need to be open. We can't have secret women's business. The other thing that I have found very interesting is, like, my husband has been incredible to talk to. I have started talking openly to my friends' husbands, and they've actually been quite receptive. So I think we shouldn't limit ourselves by saying that men don't want to know about this. A lot of the men, I think, need to know why women are going a bit freaking crazy, or why they're crying. I swear, if we had better management of perimenopause, there would probably be less marriage breakups around
100%.
these years.
1,000%. I totally agree. I've had, I'm like you, I'm very open about it with the men in my life as well, friends and family. And the amount of my men friends that have pulled me aside and said, how do I talk to my wife about this?
Yeah.
And I know that she's struggling. I know that there's stuff going on that she won't talk about and she's not going to see a doctor, but I also don't know how to have that conversation with her. How do I do it? And I think that in all of these things, the first step is actually asking, how do I have that conversation? It makes me so proud that they feel that they can come and at least ask me that.
I love that.
Because it breaks my heart to think that their relationship could be lost as a result of neither of them wanting to talk about it or knowing how to talk to each other about it.
It's something that I think came up for me during Are You Okay? Is that's a great question, but what do you say next? What do you say if someone says, no, I'm not okay? That terrified me. And so I think when it comes to perimenopause and menopause, I quite liked it when my husband turned the language into what's going on with the chemicals in your brain. So it turns into something that I'm not in charge of. Yep. It's not my feelings. It's not my emotions. Like, it's not something that I can control. It's the chemicals and my hormones that are going crazy. And for me, that helped. I guess it is a little bit of a masculine way of describing it, but for me, it sort of took the stigma away as well.
And it helps compartmentalize what's going on, like you say, as opposed to taking it all on as what have I done to my body and why is my body doing this to me? That type of victimhood, I suppose, in some respects as well.
Yeah. And also, like, I don't even try and hide my hot flushes now. I'm beyond that. But when I started getting hot flushes, I just thought it was because I was overweight. And you can just go, oh, Jesus, that's just, chubby girls problems. And I remember distinctly when I had a particularly bad, because I get weird flushes. And this is, again, I thought everyone's hot flushes would be the same, and they're not. So I have a girlfriend she honestly would get up to 40 hot flushes a day, where she goes red, sweats, but they last a minute or two, and then she's fine. But it's like 40 times a day, to the point where, look, you can't see because this is people are listening to on the podcast here, but I have a little fan that I'm holding up right now. I have that attached to my computer stand, so I just have a fan on me when I need it. So what happens is I get hot and then I just can't cool down. So for me, it's not something that sorts itself out. I have to physically do something like fan myself, or if I'm at a restaurant, I ask for a champagne bucket with ice and a napkin like a cloth napkin, and I dunk it in that and I put that around my neck.
Yeah.
And
so
I don't
it's
care
like
who
triggering your thermoregulation back into
and I need
how it should be functioning.
And of course, what's the worst time of my life to move back to Queensland is in the middle of perimenopause. It's freaking hot up here.
So, yeah, you're dealing with humidity and hot flushes.
I know, right? But where we're renting has a little jacuzzi. And so I sometimes, if I get super hot, I just go and jump in the jacuzzi, bring my core temperature down, and then I'm fine again.
Yeah.
That and my poor husband has to put up with the aircon being on quite a lot.
Yeah, we had ceiling fans installed in our house, and particularly in the bedroom, because I find that is super helpful for me.
Yeah.
One of the other things I was really keen to just quickly explore with you was, we talked about the HRT and the antidepressants, but what other lifestyle changes have you made, or did you find that you made to kind of, like, one of the things I did was I was able to work out certain triggers for things that I've changed behaviors as a result. Have you kind of gone through any of those lifestyle changes?
I need to do more, but what I have done is I used to beat myself up in the gym. And I'd basically be running on a treadmill because I ate cake. Like, I'm not even going to pretend that I'm just trying to get healthy. No, I'm trying to freaking lose weight because I eat badly. The end. I can't do that anymore. Even the thought of going into a hot, sweaty gym makes me feel like vomiting. So I've changed the way I exercise. I now do deep water running. Have you heard about that?
Well, I'm familiar with deep water running, but tell me what benefits you're getting.
Thing. I love it so much. So it's in a deep pool, so you can't touch the bottom, and you have a flotation belt that goes around your waist. And basically, it's like the motion of running, but you're in the water. So
and it's low impact, so there's no stress through the joints, and
But you work hard because you're actually got resistance either way. I actually read that doing deep water running burns more calories than running on the ground, because you've got the resistance both ways. So I do that because also I stay cool the entire time. My face gets hot, but I stay cool. So I love that. The other thing is, because my husband and I moved to the Gold Coast, is we love going for a walk on the beach to mark the end of the day.
Beautiful.
And that just, you have no idea how much that just washes the stress away. And I wouldn't call that exercise. I actually say that's more for my mental health and for my happiness
and all of that. Yeah. And I like the idea of that, closing the door on the day. It's
which I was not very good at in Sydney. In Sydney, I would work till 10 o'clock at night. It would be, quick, we'll take the dogs around the block, like that sort of thing. I'm finding moving to Queensland, I've become a little bit better with boundaries with my work, which is very unusual for me. But I'm still getting the work done. So I think it's just, you work smarter, not harder. And I'm really happy with that sort of thing. So those are probably the main things. I have one that if anyone has some advice for me, please contact me on Instagram. I get anxiety hot flushes, which are not even a bad case of anxiety. Like, I do a lot of emceeing where I'm up on stage, which is one of my favorite things to do. But it's still obviously quite stressful for the body, because I'm going up there, I'm performing in front of, I just did the Lisa Wilkinson's Breakfast with Business Chicks, and it was 800 women in the room. So I guess even though I don't feel nervous, I don't feel stressed about it, my body is reacting, and I always get a hot flush, and to the point where my hair's wet at the back.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And again, I can't do anything to bring my temperature back down. So if anyone has, I don't know, some tip on how I can control that.
I do want you, though, to tell me about what your next steps are, because I know you've got some exciting stuff that you're working on.
I am so excited. So as a lot of people know, I chose to be child-free by choice. And I now look back at that and think of the hard times I had where I was trolled and I had to speak up, and how many women I helped. And now being child-free is so acceptable. Like, it's just not even, there's hardly a blip. I feel like talking about perimenopause and menopause is part of my purpose. I think helping other women not get sideswiped like I did is what I need to be doing. So Dr. Ginny Mansberg and I have created a course called Don't Sweat It. And it is for perimenopause and menopause in the workplace. So while there are lots of people who are doing courses or raising awareness about what perimenopause is, what the symptoms are like, what you can do to help yourself, we have gone the other angle and gone, what about at work?
Yeah.
Because if you look at the Australian makeup of workers at the moment, it's 1 million women in Australia at the age where at any one day they will be either perimenopausal, menopausal, or postmenopausal. So that is a chunk of Australian women who are having to hide their symptoms at work, having to cope, worrying about brain fog, having to deal with insomnia. And we basically have done all of the deep dive research from around the globe on what employers can do to help their employees and what colleagues can do to help each other. So it's kind of creating a level playing field for anyone in the workforce. And there are some very simple solutions that are things like have a desk fan. You know, like it doesn't have to be that it's a massive new, campaign that is going to cost millions of dollars. It's actually little things can make a big difference. And part of it is talking about it and removing the stigma. So that launches in July.
Wow. I think I'll have to have you back.
Yes, please.
Prior to that
and I
launching.
will come back.
Amazing. I would love that.
Talk all about it because I think that this is a crest of a wave. Like we are starting to talk about it, but let's also talk about solutions elsewhere rather than it all being on the woman to deal with it.
Amazing. I love that so much. And when we were talking earlier about relationships breaking up as a result, I also feel very strongly that and I know that there's data to back this up, that there are a lot of women that leave careers as a result as well. And that and again is something that I find heartbreaking. And
I believe it's 1 in 10.
That's exactly right.
1 in 10 women of perimenopausal age leave their job. And sometimes it's not, they don't even realize why.
No, that's right.
They've lost their confidence. They're not feeling great about themselves. They're worried about their memory. They're worried about their performance. When in fact, if they knew it was perimenopause and that there are things that could help and their employer was aware of it and could help, they'd stay.
And the messaging that this is short term, these symptoms, these challenges that we might face, and not every woman does, but majority of women will face during their menopausal transition, doesn't last forever. It is a short term bit of pain, but it passes. And then I firmly believe, because I have actually passed through and gone to the other side, that we come out of it with so much more power, so much more confidence, and we have this incredible lived and learned experience that we can really step into and make a difference in the world.
So in my research, I wish I could remember the name of the researcher who coined the phrase, but it is menopausal zest. And it's when you've come out the other side and it's like you've got this new, like, what do I actually want to do with my life? What have I been doing because other people expect it? But what do I want to do?
I want to do, yeah.
I want to turn that side hustle into my actual job, or I want to travel more. So I like to think of it of, you've been sweating through hot sweats and then you don't sweat the small stuff anymore.
I love that. Yeah, because you sweated all that shit out.
Yep. And
amazing.
And I think women need to know that too. Like, you don't want to feel like this is going to be what it's like forever.
That's right.
You need to know that you can get through it. You can support yourself, support each other. And then on the other side, it's time to kick some ass.
Yes, sister. Yes. I love that. All right. Now, we do need to bring this back for another probably 5 or 6 episodes, but let's just focus on the next one first. All right. Let's wrap this up. One question I do ask all of my amazing guests is, What are you reading or watching right now that's bringing you joy? And this can be highbrow, lowbrow. It can be, I don't mind. Tell us.
So this is probably the most controversial recommendation because it is a Netflix series called Drive to Survive about the Formula One.
My husband and my son are obsessed.
See? Okay. Now, I had people recommending it to me for years because they're up to the 4th season. Like I'm so behind. And I'm just like, I am not interested in sport in general. Why the hell would I be interested in the Formula One? It is such a brilliant documentary that it's like a soap opera.
It is.
Like Bold and the Beautiful has nothing on the Formula One. So I actually recommend it. And it's a great one to watch with your sons and husbands and stuff like that because they will love it too.
Yeah, they do.
So my husband and I slammed 4 seasons in about 3 weeks. Like we just we watched.
Yep.
And the book that I just finished today is one, and this is actually very appropriate because I actually don't read books anymore. I have them read to me on Audible.
Oh, how decadent of you.
I actually love that. I'm like, I have them read to me. So when I was depressed, I started a very famous book, Where the Crawdads Sing. Okay.
Yes,
but
Where the Crawdads Sing.
Where the Crawdads Sing.
Mm-hmm.
When I started that, I was in a bit of a depressive state and I actually couldn't listen to it. Like it was just too hardcore for me. Now I'm on Lexapro. I listen to it and I have loved it. I finished it today. And the movie's coming out soon.
It is because Reese Witherspoon bought the rights to it and has the most incredible cast.
I love Reese. She is the epitome of women supporting women.
I fangirl so hard over Reese.
Yeah. So I did actually interview her once. But it wasn't great.
Oh.
I know. You know what it was? I expected her to be my best friend and she was very professional.
God damn.
So rude.
I
know. So she was like, okay, what do you want to achieve in this interview? Right. Yes, let's do it. Bang.
I suppose she obviously had to be at that level.
1,000 interviews a day when I wanted her to go.
Look, if only she'd known the fun that she could have had.
Anyway, I still love her.
Yeah, I still love her too. And I loved Where the Crawdads Sing. I would rate it up there as one of the best books I'm a reader, not a listener when it comes to books. And I rate it as one of the best books I've ever read.
Ooh.
Amazing. Yep. Good call.
So quite 2 ends of the spectrum there, right? Drive to Survive.
I love that.
Love it.
Love it. Shelley, thank you so much for your time today. It has been an absolute pleasure chatting away to you here. I'll be dropping a heap of links into the show notes. And as I've said, we are definitely going to have you and Dr. Ginny back very soon.
Cannot wait. Thank you so much for having me. And next time, can we do it with a glass of wine?
Oh, please. Thank you for listening today. I am so grateful to have these conversations with incredible women and experts, and I'm grateful that you chose to hit play on this episode of Dear Menopause. If you have a minute of time today, please leave a rating or a review. I would love to hear from you because you are my biggest driver for doing this work. If this chat went way too fast for you and you want more, head over to stellarwomen.com.au/podcast for the show notes. And while you're there, take my midlife quiz to see why it feels like midlife is messing with your head. Hey, you. I wanted to let you know that the Stellar Circle membership is now open with access to my little black book of guest experts who will host masterclasses and be available for Q&A to members only. You'll get coaching with me 1 to 2 times a month. You'll work on learning what the fuck is going on during peri and meno, what you can do to feel better, and be supported and empowered by myself and the private community of fellow members. Check it out at stellarwomen.com.au. I'll see you over at the Stellar Circle program.